NSJT, no secrets is true. Jazrel Emil Cavon. I come to you today and I just want to say simply first, thank you for listening to my messages. Thank you for listening to my music. Thank you for encouraging others to listen. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. But we are in the midst of a war right now. A war over souls, a war over dreams, a war over our way of life. If we believe in the things that we say we believe in, then we must fight. We must not stand on the sidelines waiting for something to happen. We're not waiting on that dare to be great moment, because the dare to be great moment is now. There is nothing to fear but fear itself, as Teddy Roosevelt once said in his inaugural address. We must begin to move past fear and allow love to return to the heights of which we know it's supposed to be. We must press our palms against the floors of heaven and shake it. We must lift our voices and rumble all through heaven with our prayers. We must begin to fast and believe that our fasting has a purpose. Everything we do have a purpose. We are the greatest storytellers on the face of this planet because we tell these stories of ourselves from our own point of view, and we want to be heard. We don't want to be ignored. We don't want to be turned away. We don't want to be hurt. We don't want to feel shame or guilt for the things that we had to do. A lot of us had no other choice but to do the things that we have done. As I said before, I was abused for 14 years. Locked away in the prison of my mind. Afraid of the world, afraid to be a part of the world, because my mom never let us outside. The window was our way to the world. And I spent 14 years watching people interact with each other. So I speak from a wealth of knowledge. We had nothing but books and a table in our room. We watch nothing but news. We discuss politics and we discuss sociology and psychology and theology. We were forced to learn how to be more than just a man, more than just a woman. For me, NSJT was created out of that sense of urgency. That what I was seeing was the decay of society. As a man, I felt ashamed when I began to see that women didn't respond to poetry. They didn't expect flowers on the first date or a gift. They didn't expect dinner in a movie. That's how far we have fallen. That the daughters of Eve are just filled with lust, and they are hollow, filled with dust. That the queens of the earth no longer sees the wealth of who they are. And men, not realizing what it's like to be a woman, what it's like to have someone chasing you only to have sex with you. Not finding value in you for who you are and what you are. I say that our generation has lowered their standards to a point where there is no return. Babies having babies. If you watch what's going on in the world, there's famine everywhere. There's wars and rumors of war. We look at our own society and we stress about the money We stress about the house. We stress about the car. We stress about whether we are making a good impression on other people. We want to know how they see us. Our self-esteem is attached to what they are thinking about us. But I tell you now that the war itself has started. The division that comes between a mother and a daughter, between a father and a son, between a brother and a sister, between a neighbor and another neighbor. I've noticed that in our society, it's all about minding your own business. No longer does it take a village to raise a child, but a child is raised by a single parent struggling. But a child is suffering from abuse, rape, incest, verbal abuse, and you want them to dream about going to college when they can barely see another day. We wonder why the suicide rate is high. In our country, we hold the highest rate per capita in the world. The highest violence in the world. The highest incarceration rates in the world. We have so many people now going into poverty, trying to hold on to what an American dream is supposed to be. We're not here for the American dream. We are here for the will and the purpose of God. We have to remember who we serve and not get caught up in society's thinking of how we're supposed to look and how we're supposed to dress and how we're supposed to act. Darwin's theory of the survival of the fittest does not count, because wisdom triumphs strength any day. Wisdom is strength. Many pray the serenity prayer, and it is important to understand that prayer. The wisdom to know the difference between the things that you can do and the things that you cannot do. But we must remember the solemn prayer that our Father has taught us as well. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not to temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, the glory, forever and ever. We must abandon the vain prayers of spilling our guts, because the enemy is listening. The enemy has not been cast out of heaven. He is listening, and he lays traps for you. When you say that you're praying that you'll be able to pay your rent, oh, he's going to make it hard for you to pay your rent. When you pray that you are struggling with being a part of society, you'll become an outcast even more. But there's nothing wrong with being an outcast. As I soon found out, being an outcast was popular in the Bible. All the people that God had chosen to be prophets and leaders and special individuals were outcast in their own community. Our own Savior, the Lamb, was an outcast. He had no home. He lived from spot to spot. He owned nothing but the clothes on his back and the message of the Father. He did not worry how he would be able to sustain his life. He continued on, even though the Pharisees and the scribes told him that he didn't know what he was talking about. Even though people turned their backs on him, the rich and the wealthy refused to give up their wealth to follow him. Even though in the end his disciples denied even knowing him, he continued on. He carried his own cross. A crown of thorns was put on his head. He was scourged, he was whipped until his flesh ripped open. He was hung on a cross and stabbed with a spear for being different, for being what the Lord called him to be. We have to remember he spoke to us about loving the law. And when they asked him what the greatest commandment was, it was to love thy God with all thy heart. The second one was to love thy neighbor as you love yourself. It is like the doctor's oath, first do no harm. It's how we should live our lives. It's how we should train and raise our children. It is the battlefield out here, if you haven't noticed, if you haven't opened your eyes. I love who I am because I can see the reality of the world without standing in the midst of the world. He said, live in the world, but be not of it. I spent 14 years living in the world, being not of it. So as I became an adult, the same principles were there. Women could not understand that I wasn't seeking sex from them, that I wanted emotional content from them. I wanted to know their story. I wanted to know who they were, what they believed, what they would take a stand for. And you'd be amazed at the stories that I heard of them being molested and raped when they were young, abused, discarded, that the animal instincts in man became more prevalent than ever before. And that was just my generation. Imagine the generations that's behind me and behind that and behind that. Our ancestors have lit a path and left the milestone markers for us to know the direction to go in. They had hoped that we would be able to cross the boundary they were unable to cross. We are all sons and daughters of Adam and Eve. We are divine because we are the children of God. It is hard to believe in the enemy when we live in a life where we have all this technology and we have all these things going on all at once, and we're worried about the club, and we worried about Johnny and Sue and Becky and what they're thinking and whether we're going to be best friends forever. It's hard to believe that the enemy is related to us, but in the order of creation, the enemy is our brother. The enemy knows us very well. Because when Adam ate that apple, flesh came into existence. And I've been questioning on that, and I said, well, before they ate the apple, they were naked and they had no clue. They saw God, they knew God, they roamed freely. But the second they ate the apple, they realized they were naked and they clothed themselves. That's when flesh came into being. That is how the beast came into being. That's how we became half divine and half animal. We like to call ourselves human. But there is no scientist that can tell you where the soul is or where the soul goes when it leaves its body upon death. That's how I know that there is a realm beyond this realm, that there is a place that we must struggle to get to. that we must fight the battle head on, that we must believe in who we are. The Lord said that our poverty is not understanding the wealth of our soul, not understanding the strength of who we are. We have turned our backs on the temple. Furthermore, we have turned our backs on the Word of God. There are those who use the Word of God as a weapon, as a sledgehammer, against those that they call sinners. We are all sinners. We are all falling short of the glory of God. There is no perfect man in the sense of God. We are perfect because of our creation. We are perfect because God created us to be perfect. But we are on a search of perfection. That's the difference. Those who stand in robes before mega churches and spit out the verses of the Bible and driving around in Lexuses and all those things are defaming what God had intended for us. You preach the word at no cost. That 10% tithing goes into the community as you go out from door to door to seek to make lives better, to seek to spread the good word, the knowledge that God is on your side. Jazrel means God souls. And I have watched him in my life allow me to sow seeds, and I have watched them grow into beautiful things. My family as a prime example. My sister is a story of triumph for me. My beautiful nieces. Being raised by the understanding that we are the very same people who were downtrodden when we lived in the inner city and we made it out and we have had good careers and we have gone to school to learn more. We have pushed past. We have broken the cycle of abuse and created a new family tradition of loving each other as we are. Encouraging each other to be better, to be more than just human, to define ourselves by the standards of definitions by which we learn each and every day. We learn. We seek wisdom. We cling not to materialistic things. It's okay to have them, but we cling to the Word of God. We cling to be the presence of the Divine One in the world. We believe that we are the angels that we seek. That if we can do a good deed now, we can do a good deed when we are called upon, then we have fulfilled our duties as being the angels that we seek. Now we wear our hearts on our sleeves, and yes, we still have the battle scars of those who tried to take advantage of us, but they weren't taking advantage of us. They were taking advantages of the will of God. And the suffering of the wrath of using the will of God against him is great. I watch people fall because they didn't want to follow the will of God. They didn't want to go down the path that God had created for them. God has given us a great power of foresight, discernment. And people say, how do you say that? How do you know that? because it takes 8 minutes for the light of the sun to reach the earth. So we're already running 8 minutes behind. We are already living in the past. It is that realization that gives me the understanding that we can still see the future if we are trying hard enough and praying hard enough and fasting hard enough to be able to catch up to that 8 minutes and see what's coming next. I had been told my destiny so many times, and I had ran away from it, and every time I ran away from it, I was hurt. It was a feeling of disgust, a feeling of shame, because I was laying in filth when I was destined to be clean, when I was destined to be something greater than I was allowing myself to be. When I was all caught up into TV and dressing and putting on the new kicks and going hanging out at the movies and trying to be something I wasn't, I realized that I felt so alone. I felt as if the world was moving and I was standing still. I was watching people live their lives, what they thought was life. Watching them careen over the cliff, believing that their way was the right way. It took me a long time to begin to understand that God moves in a fashion that we could live in the residue of God and we can follow in the footprints of God because He is constantly entering and exiting our lives. He is constantly blessing us. But we must bless others as He blessed us. It's like going to Walmart every day, getting what's on sale and stocking up the house until the point where you have no more room to put anything. So you have to start giving things away. That's how blessings work. When He began to teach me EAO, event, action, outcome, where I have to look at what the action is and what the outcome is, I began to order my life. And He showed me that each person cannot do all the jobs that is necessary to sustain a human in this world. One person has to be the wise one. One person has to be the voice of reason. Another person has to be the brute force of tough love. Another person has to be the sympathetic person. Another person has to be the person that brings joy and laughter in your life. When you begin to look at that, it's almost like building a house. You have electricians and plumbers and contractors and all these different people that are needed to build this house efficiently. Because this house has to weather a lot of storms. This house has to be able to stand when everything else around it is falling. I learned from the best. I was told that I was supposed to be a preacher, and I still reject that notion. I don't mind teaching the word. I don't mind speaking the truth, but I refuse to go in a profession. That's what they call it now, a profession. To earn money, to take people's dollars, hard-earned money, and build an empire unto myself. I refuse to proclaim myself as an instrument of God. Because only God can do that. I am who I am is all I can say. I will always do what's in the best interest of those involved in my life. I will always do what's in the best interest of who I am. I will always protect my name. Jazrel Emil Cavon stands for something. It is a legacy that will be immortal to the end of time. People will know me as a fighter for the cause of truth, for the cause of love, for the cause of peace, for the cause of mercy. I believe in the grace of God. You go on my Facebook page, Jazrel Cavon, and I leave quotes every day to inspire those who I love, to inspire those who I consider my friends, who have seen me battle tooth and nail for them and for myself. Two years ago, I almost died because I was a chef and I refused to give up my career because of my illness. Until God spoke to me and told me that he had something else for me to do, that my time was done. My time was well used, but this is not the way for you to continue. Doctors told me had I not came to the hospital at the time I did, I was going to be gone. I was going to be dead. But what the doctors didn't understand is I've almost died so many times, it's not even funny. They told my mother she couldn't have children. And she had a beautiful daughter. And she had a beautiful son. When I was young, I was abused from the time I was 4 years old until the time I was 18. At the time, I didn't think I was going to make it. But the Lord knew more than I did. I had to succumb to his truth. I had to succumb to his reality. I had to succumb to his knowledge and his wisdom. That is the purpose of my broadcast. That is the purpose of my statements. That is my purpose of my teachings, is that we must follow in the footsteps of God and not the footsteps of anyone else. We have to begin to see the miracle of life, the blessings of hope, the blessings of truth, the power of love. We have to believe in ourselves. My name is a powerful name. It strikes fear in those who have not heard who I am. I'm more than a myth. I exist. I battle for those who are motherless and fatherless and voiceless, those who have been abused, those who have been turned away. I fight for them. And I will continue to fight for them until there is no breath left in my body. I do it not for rewards or accolades or be put on a pedestal. I have said it time and time again that I don't want to enter the gates of heaven before the person that deserves to go. I may be honored enough to be allowed in heaven, but until that gate is full with those who belong there, I refuse. I refuse the notion that because I'm saved, I go before everyone else. The starving children, the children that's dying of malaria, the children that drink the same water that they wash clothes and use the bathroom in. Before the kids that are shot and killed in the inner city because of stray bullets. I refuse to go before the man who works his whole entire life to be a good citizen, a good person, a person that is honorable, a person that is righteous. I refuse to go before they go. It's not a gimmick. It's not a game. It is how I see life. I see life as a moment to be shaped, to be molded, to be something great and grand. I look at the numbers of those who listen and who play my recordings, and I'm thankful for each and every one of them. I'm thankful for each and every download. But I don't do this so that people can know me as some kind of leader, shepherd, or anything with a higher title than who I am. I am the Son of Man, a descendant of Adam. I am a lover by choice, a dreamer. I am who I am. I believe that love is a birthright and not a gift of the poppy. I believe that we should be each other's keeper. I believe that God has a purpose for my life. He has a purpose for your life. I believe that if I can touch one or inspire one, then I can inspire many. That if I can push the message forward, then I will, by all means necessary. My heroes are those who have been forged out of darkness, who dare enter the light to transform the world into a place of better existence. I am not afraid, not anymore, not after all the things I've seen and heard. I am not alone in this battle. I know that each and every person who has a soul and a spirit is warring with themselves of what side they should choose. Whether they should follow their destiny or follow the crowd. My job is to tell you to follow your destiny. Let the crowd be as they may. I believe that we are sons and daughters of the living God. That we are the children of destiny. That our purpose is to move forward, not backwards. That we clear a path for those who are behind us, so that they may know that there is hope, that there is a shred of decency in the world, that they know that angels still exist, that they are among us because we are them. That in the final days, in the days that we meet the angels of heaven, we'll be able to tell a masterful story of how God changed our lives and how much we love God. We'll be able to swap and compare stories. We'll be able to speak with a clear understanding that God is great.